Hello everyone, this is Bryant from Fanbase Press. We're here at Comic-Con 2016, and once again I'm talking to one of my favorite writers, Christos Gage. We're going to be talking about Buffy Season 10 and 11. Christos, thank you for making some time for us.
Thank you for having me, as always.
No problem.
Always a pleasure.
All right, so this is a big time. I mean, we're at the end of Season 10.
Yes.
Season 11 has just been announced.
Yeah.
Let's start with something I don't know that you're going to be able to answer this, but we have this very shocking ending to the last issue released this week. So we have one more issue, I believe, in this season,
Yep.
and then we're going to start the next season in a bit. But I guess what I would like to ask is, how permanent is this absence of Xander, and will we be starting a season 11 sans Xander Harris?
I think you need to read the next issue 30, and find out.
All right, of course. All right, so let's talk about season 11.
Okay.
We've got the announcement. I know there's probably, again, not a lot that you can talk about, but what can fans expect from the upcoming season of Buffy?
Well, it's going to be, we're going to switch things up a bit. I know that when we had the summit, Josh said he thought it was time to change it up a little bit and experiment with a different format. So instead of 25 to 30 issues, it's going to be 12 issues, and it's going to tell like one big story. So in comic book terms, it would be like, a maxi series like Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Sure.
And in TV terms, it would be more like a show like American Horror Story or the British model of TV, where it's a shorter season and it tells sort of one big story in that season. We're also going to raise the stakes, not to the point of like getting as cosmic as season 8, but
Sure.
Whereas most seasons there's an apocalypse that threatens at the ending, we sort of open up with not an apocalypse but a great disaster that our heroes fail to stop, and it's sort of about dealing with the ramifications of what happens after that. So we're, it'll be a little bit different. It's a little scary and exciting at the same time, because I could probably just do character-oriented stories.
Sure.
For the rest, forever. But I think it's good. I think Joss's instincts are right, which is to switch things up and get the creative juices flowing in a different way.
With your working relationship with Joss when it comes to this thing, I mean, obviously he's very busy all the time with projects of his own. How much involvement is there with Joss? How does that work between the two of you? Is it something where he kind of comes with the ideas and lets you form them, or is it more collaborative than that?
Well, we have the summits every year, which is essentially like a TV writer's room, where it's me and Joss and editors from Dark Horse and other people, sometimes writers who've worked on the show, like Jane Espenson, who've worked on the comic, like Andrew Chambliss was at this most recent one. My wife Ruth was there. She's a TV writer.
Nice.
It's just a bunch of brains in a room creating, and that's when we usually, and Joss is acting in the showrunner role, so we sort of sketch out the larger arc of what's going to happen this season, and then I do I sort of break it down into more specifics, and he gets everything sent to him, and he weighs in if there's something he feels needs to be addressed. But for the most part, once we've got the story worked out, he's very, he feels comfortable enough, I think, to just let us do our thing and only speak out if there's a problem, or if we're going to make some big change, we run it by him. Like when we decided this past season it was time for Andrew to finally realize he was gay. He, of course, was the last to know, and we ran it by Joss, and he was like, "Yeah, it's time. Let's do it." And so that sort of thing. And at the end of season 9 in Angel Faith, when we were figuring it, we had decided that Giles would be resurrected, but there was some question as to how. Would he just come back as his normal self? Would he come back? My pitch was that he should come back as Ripper,
right.
Like early 20s, and Joss said, well, my worry about that is then he'd be sort of the same age as the main characters, and then there'd be sort of this creepy prospect of romance between Giles and Buffy or Willow or whoever, right, which would just be weird. So Joss felt he should come back as a 12, 13-year-old kid. Mm-hmm. So that was fun. So, that's about how it works out. And Joss is pretty great about being available when we need him, but at the same time, we try not to bother him too much, and just hope that if he sees something he finds objectionable, he'll speak up.
All right. And this again might be a question that you can only answer to a certain degree, but do you see this as a series that has a definitive ending, or is it something where we could continue with Buffy sort of relating to her growth as a growing audience indefinitely?
Well, it's really up to Joss. I mean, there's obviously the only reason he's still doing this is because he cares about the characters and feels there are good stories to be told with them. And what's always seemed to work for Buffy and those characters is to take life stages we all go through and explore them in a supernatural, through the prism of a supernatural, the world of the supernatural. And we saw that in the show with high school, college, and now in the comics we're kind of doing early adulthood, and at some point, who knows, maybe Buffy will have a kid. I don't have kids, so I probably shouldn't write that, but I don't know what could happen. Conceivably, it could go on. I wouldn't mind seeing hey, middle-aged Buffy.
Right, right.
But it's really up to Joss.
Well, and we're seeing something, obviously, as you mentioned with this season, we're seeing maturity grow with each of these characters. We're seeing Andrew realize more about himself. We're seeing Buffy make this attempt with Spike to have a more adult relationship where it's not as high school or epic as you might be. They're actually working through their problems.
Right.
Is that a relationship that we think will continue on with Buffy and Spike? Is that something that we're going to see them continue to struggle through season 11?
Yeah, they. I think it's pretty clear from the issues that had come out in season 10 that they're going to stick it out and try to make it go with their relationship. It's funny because as soon as they got together, all the Spuffies were saying, "This is great, but I know they're going to get broken up by the end of the season."
Yes.
And the funny thing is that was never our plan. Our plan was they're going to try to have a more adult relationship. At first, their insecurities and flaws that doomed them before. I mean, there's more than that. Obviously, the first time they got together, it was very self-destructive. Spike didn't have a soul. Buffy was coming out of a really bad time. So they were like, well, let's try a normal relationship. But a lot of their neuroses came to the fore. And then they actually had to make a choice to try it from a mature way. Spike not looking at Buffy as this, figure on a pedestal that's going to save his life and solve all his problems. It's his job to make himself a good person worthy of having a soul and being a human being. And on Buffy's side, not to sort of to accept the flaws and not to run when she feels like she's getting too close to someone because she's afraid it's going to be taken from her, because that's what's always happened. She lost her mom, she's had many friends die, and then the interesting thing about being a Slayer is you've always got this sword hanging over your head. Like, they don't live very long.
Yeah, not at all.
Which is why I think like middle-aged Slayer is of itself an interesting idea far in the future. But so there was all that, and so they're going to make a try of it. Now that doesn't mean it's happily ever after. That doesn't mean they're going to get married or anything like that. In season 11, they will still be together at the start of the season. Their relationship will be less of a focus of the season because the events going on around them are going to be big, but at the same time, that can't help but impact their relationship. So that's about all I can say.
No problem. Any characters that you feel like haven't been able to step into the spotlight that you'd like to see get their chance to shine?
I feel like most of the characters have had a moment. There's some we sort of, shuffled off at the beginning of season 10, like Billy the Slayer, which was a Jane Espenson character that I think is a great character, but I didn't feel there's enough room to do him justice. I'd like to see Jane do something with him. I've always loved Lorne, the character of Lorne, and I spoke to Joss about it, and Joss was like, because Andy Hallett, the actor, was a very good friend of his, and Joss said, I wouldn't feel like I'm not ready to do that, but if you have a good story for him, do it. But I don't want to. I haven't come up with a good enough story that's like, okay, this is worth doing with this character. It's more like, wouldn't it be cool to see him pop up? And it's like, no, it's he's not. I mean, like, I'm friends with James Leary, who played Clem, and it's always fun when Clem pops up just for some fun.
Sure.
But it's a different situation. Yeah.
So one thing that we've really enjoyed, I know, and the fan base itself has enjoyed, is the idea that you go back and sort of mine this story material from these characters. You pick out little gems that only the hardcore fans would know, or maybe people that forgot, they're reminded and go back to those episodes. Mm-hmm. Is this something that is just something of your writing style? You feel like it's part of making the characters fit into the world that already exists, or is it something more specific to the Buffy series for you?
No, I do it in superhero comics too. I mean, it's tricky because you have to walk a line of there's always the danger that you'll turn into a writer who's like, last page reveal, it's like, oh my God, you're back, and it's like, it's some obscure character from 1972 that we've never seen before and no one cares. But if, for me, quite honestly, as a writer, I'm always, if other brilliant people like Joss Whedon and Drew Goddard and Jane Espenson and Steve DeKnight have told stories before, and I get to use stuff from that story, I don't want to use it as a crutch, but I'd be an idiot not to look at it and say, hey, is there something in what they did that can work in what we're doing now? And if there is, great. I mean, why not use it? And the trick is to not use it in a way that's like, hey, this is only for you diehards who've seen every episode. It's more like, let's bring this back, sort of re-explain what it is in an organic way and why it's important now.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, I have two final non-Buffy questions to wrap up with. The first one is just, we obviously love your work on Buffy, and Angel and Faith. But if people don't know your other work, what would you recommend that they go check out if they want to make the transition from Buffy to some of your non-Buffy work?
Well, my wife Ruth and I have co-written an original graphic novel called The Line of Aurora from Oni Press. It's a historical epic like Braveheart, and fans of that sort of material should really enjoy that. I mean, I've written many superhero comics.
Yes.
Buffy fans would probably like Avengers Academy. I've written Spider-Man, X-Men, any number of things at Marvel, and at DC too. Excuse me. I've just written a lot of comics.
There's a lot out there to choose from.
Yeah. So check that out. Ruth and I wrote a Wonder Woman 77 story with the Linda Carter
nice.
Wonder Woman. That was fun. We're currently writing Captain Marvel for Marvel.
Excellent.
So, there's a lot out there. Check it out. It all depends on where your personal tastes lie. I do think Avengers Academy would be in the Buffy fans' wheelhouse.
Okay. And then finally, we like to wrap up with questions, given that we're Fanbase Press. We like to find out what our creators are fans of. So what are you a fan of recently?
Recently, Ruth and I have been watching The People vs. O.J. Simpson, American Crime Story, which is just so good. And I don't know why we didn't watch it when it was originally airing. I sort of had this idea of like, well, I know what happens.
Sure.
But it's not that. It's about how it happens and exploring these characters. And it was so well done. And a friend of mine, Bryant Dillon, is one of the executive producers. We were in film school together, and so I just thought that came out really nicely, and I was very happy to see it work out so well. I mean, it's really great television. We love Better Call Saul, Game of Thrones. In comics, I'm a big fan of Saga. I think. Oh yeah. What Alan Moore's doing with Providence at Avatar Press is amazing. It sort of helps if you're a Lovecraft fan.
Okay.
If you're not that into H.P. Lovecraft's work, you might get a little lost. But
sure.
I think that's great. Let's see, Saga at Marvel. I love Dan Slott and Mike Allred's Silver Surfer. There's a lot of good stuff out there and a lot of varied stuff. So whatever your tastes are, you should be able to find something. And I do want to add, which I think is fantastic news, that Rebecca Isaacs will be returning for season 11.
Yes.
I don't know if we covered that. So that's really exciting because I think that she just does such a good job with the characters and their facial expressions, and she's also amazing in creature design. Our whole team's coming back, Dan Jackson and Jimmy Betancourt. So I think, hopefully we're in good shape.
Well, we're super excited. I mean, we love this season. We can't wait for the next. So we're eagerly awaiting it. So thank you for talking with us today, Christos.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
And once again, this is Bryant coming to you from Comic-Con. If you want to find out more Comic-Con coverage, go to www.fanbasepress.com.